My name is Ken. I'm almost 40 years old. One day, I received a certified mail at my house. It was addressed to my wife, Rose, of course. Rose, a housewife, had no idea that such a bomb would arrive. She is still snoring and sleeping comfortably. It was already morning, but she showed no signs of waking up. When we were first married, she used to wake up earlier than I did. She prepared breakfast and lunch for me and waited for me and even woke me up. But by then, it had been almost 3 years since Rose stopped making breakfast. Now that I have done some research, I understand. This year is almost the same period of time as the affair. I used to envy my colleague's wife until I found out about the affair. But on that day, Rose was sloppy. My belongings had been moved to a new place. From that day on, I was going to live in a one-room apartment near the office. The room was still small and the building was quite old, but it was still a great place to reset my life. By the way, as for Rose's adulterous partner Thomas, I had already taken care of it. On the condition that I don't tell his company or his wife, I was paid $80,000 in alimony through his lawyer. After the lump sum payment was made, Rose and I agreed that she could do whatever she wanted. But Thomas did not seem to have contacted Rose. Since I suspected the affair, I had set up cameras in several places in my house, so that I could watch on my computer when Rose received the certified letter. I was looking forward to seeing how she would react and how ugly it would get. I was also looking forward to seeing how Rose would react and how ugly she would become. A mutual acquaintance of Thomas and Rose, Abby, was going to reveal the whole story within Thomas's company. Incidentally, Thomas' wife's father seems to be Thomas's boss. If these circumstances came to light, it would be a terrible situation for Thomas. I couldn't help but chuckle at the thought of the chaos that would ensue. Abby is the one who will reveal the affair, so I didn't break my promise to Thomas. Besides, it would be a deserved punishment compared to what was done to me. As soon as I got my new apartment, I set up my computer and started cleaning up, waiting for the time to come. In the afternoon, the doorbell rang and the content certified mail arrived. Rose, who had been sleeping until then, went to the front door and picks up the mail. She tilted her head curiously and wondered what it was. Apparently, Rose had never seen certified mail before. What? What? I've been served? From him? She opened the sealed envelope, muttering to herself, "By the way, she's talking about me." Rose, with a frustrated look on her face, spent about 3 minutes reading the document. Then she collapsed to her knees and sat down on the floor. Why? Why? Did he find out? How? The camera I had set up was not an expensive one, so the picture quality was not very good. Even so, I could see that Rose's face was twitching. As if coming to her senses, she picked up her phone. She kept calling and calling again, as if she couldn't reach anyone. Why won't he answer? What do you mean it's not working? Rose exclaimed. Apparently, she wanted to call Thomas, but the phone operator said the number was not in service. I smirked. I told Thomas that when Rose and I were done talking, he could do whatever he wanted. But until then, I told him to stay in touch with me. So Thomas canceled his cell phone. I got a call from him with a new phone number. Rose apparently did not know it. Rose, who couldn't get in touch with Thomas, plopped down on the table for a while. "Okay, I'll apologize. I'm sure he'll forgive me if I apologize." She started to call me, talking to herself, but I had already gotten a new number. She got the same message as Thomas's number. Rose was in despair. Impatient, Rose seemed to have called her parents' house next. "My husband left me because of some misunderstanding. I can't reach him, and I don't know what to do." Rose told her parents. I didn't know what her in-law's response was, but Rose looked pale. "I don't know his work number," and so on. Surprisingly, Rose did not know the name of the company I worked for, even though we had been married for more than 5 years. "I don't know. My husband didn't tell me the name of the company or where it was located," she told her parents. I had changed jobs after I got married, so I had told Rose about the company many times since then. I had also given her my contact information when I started working there, but Rose said she didn't know it. I was astonished that she had lost interest in me to this extent. Rose then contacted my parents. I had told my parents the whole story. I don't know if she sounded angry or cold, but Rose started apologizing frantically. And then she realized there was nothing she could do. After a few days, Rose gave up her resistance and contacted my lawyer, who was listed in the content certified letter, and we agreed to discuss it the next week. In the meantime, Rose stayed at home, where I had already moved out of. "What's with that guy? Seriously? Can he please go away?" she would say. "I wonder how much alimony I'll get if we get divorced." She was talking to herself. I watched her do this over the computer. From the looks of things, I knew that Rose would make up excuses and not apologize for what she's done. Rose didn't even know the law that said the guilty party pays alimony. She seemed to think that woman would get alimony. She even seemed to think that it was my fault that she had an affair. This is her nature. Whenever she makes a mistake, she does not apologize immediately and tries to put the blame on others, which is unimaginable. The day of the meeting came. I had promised to visit my in-laws' home with my lawyer. When I arrive, I see a man I do not know. I took his business card and found out that he was a lawyer hired by Rose. What is she up to now? Rose's lawyer was very brash and said, "Your wife wants a divorce, and the reason is because you have been harassing her. Rose says she's willing to agree to a divorce, but in that case, we will have to charge you $20,000 for the division of property and alimony." My in-laws took Rose's side of the story. They were open and honest, saying that the divorce was inevitable and that Rose should not do as she pleased at this point. My lawyer was dismayed by such an attitude. But my lawyer listened to Rose's lawyer's argument to the end, and when the conversation was over, he started to fight back. First, my lawyer began to explain the circumstances of the divorce. Then, He began to explain that the cause of the divorce was Rose's infidelity, presenting the evidence. During the explanation, Rose's lawyer began to feel embarrassed. There were so many discrepancies between what Rose told me and what you told me. So let's talk again on another day, he told us. My lawyer said, "My client has taken time out of his busy schedule to give us this time to discuss this. I believe that both parties are in agreement with today's discussion. If you are unable to talk today, then we will have to discuss in this further court." Rose and her lawyer looked at each other. My lawyer gave them nowhere to escape. "If you want to talk to your client, go ahead. We don't have time for this, so you'll have to do it here and now. If you want, we can leave you alone." Rose's lawyer then offered to withdraw from the case on the spot, on the grounds that he had been given false information by Rose, and then left the scene. It seems that her in-laws did not know that Rose had lied. They forced Rose to sign the divorce papers by holding her down. The amount of alimony would be decided at a later date. As we were about to leave, "You won't forget about this," I heard Rose spit out a line. My lawyer quickly turned around and said, "As I said before our discussion, we have all this recorded. Please be careful, because such abusive language can be used against you." He smiled and said this, and I felt really good about this. I went to file the divorce papers at the city office. A few days later, my lawyer informed me that we would discuss alimony the next week. The day soon came. We were supposed to talk about alimony, but Rose suddenly spoke up. "Please listen to this first. I am pregnant with your child." I was a little surprised at the unexpectedness of the conversation. We had been almost completely without children, and even on the rare occasions when we made love, we always used contraception. I insisted that it was not my child. Rose, without regard to the fact that it was not mine, agreed to the divorce, but made a false accusation and told me she wanted me to pay for the child's birth and child support, as if she was taking advantage of the child. My in-laws came out again, and it was a bit of a mess. I was pretty sure it wasn't my kid, but it was difficult to prove it verbally. The hidden camera I had set up might have caught me using contraception, but it would take a long time to find it, and frankly, it would be very hard. My lawyer and I left the scene. I called Thomas. I asked him if he was using contraception. The answer was no. I asked him again about the frequency, and he told me that it was almost every week, sometimes twice a week. When I heard this, "Congrats, you're going to be a dad now. Good for you," I told him. Then Thomas said, "I'm sorry. I promised not to contact her, but please allow me to contact your wife this one time." Since he said that, I told him, "She's not my wife anymore. She's my ex-wife. Please go ahead and discuss it thoroughly." I hung up the phone. 5 days later, Rose admitted that the child was his. Apparently, Thomas had contacted her and talked to her. When she found out she was having a baby, Rose wanted to cover for Thomas. And if it's my child, she must have thought she would get some of her alimony back as child support. Worst of all, I thought there was a possibility that it was all a crazy story, but it seems the pregnancy was real. Did she love Thomas so much that she went to such lengths to protect him? Well, it doesn't matter now. After that, we resumed discussions about alimony. As expected, Rose did not apologize once during the discussion. As for the alimony, we settled on $30,000. Later, I received a handwritten letter of apology from Thomas. It also contained the circumstances and details of the affair. At the end, he wrote, "I will never see Rose again. If I break this promise, I will pay $10,000. Please do not tell the company or my wife." And that was the end of the letter. I was hard on him until now, but I wasn't going to tell his company or wife. I would not tell them. But Thomas was stupid enough that he did not realize that there was a possibility that someone other than me would leak the information. Not long after that, Abby's leak led to Thomas' family in shambles. Everything was exposed, and his wife was very upset. Of course she was. Her husband had committed adultery and got his partner pregnant. How could she not lose her temper? Thomas and his wife are now living separately. Well, I guess they deserved it. Rose's behavior was the only thing I could not understand until the end. Since then, she has never made any attempt to get back together with me. Well, I guess she no longer has any affection for me. Maybe she has already forgotten about it. That would be better for me. Looking back, I remember the look on Rose's face when she saw the content certified mail. Rose's face when she saw the letter was so destructive that it erased all the anguish I had felt until then. Rose, who had always neglected me and stayed at home as she pleased. The look on her pale face when she was suddenly exposed for the evil she had done made me feel very satisfied. Even now, when I think back on it, I can't help but laugh. Maybe it's time for me to forget about it and think about the future. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you again. Please subscribe to our channel.